On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're talking about your mailbag questions, some Thunder roster moves, and more.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into your mailbag questions, your hot takes about this Thunder 4-0 start. We'll look ahead to the weekend matchups and give you some housekeeping on the Thunder roster moves and injury updates. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this season big at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet just by going to FanDuel.com to get started. But we begin today with some housekeeping. So prior to the game against the San Antonio Spurs on Wednesday, the Thunder announced that Jay Will re-irritated his hamstring. So he'll be sidelined for multiple weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. He'll be reevaluated at that point. This is why we stressed for Jay Will, for Hartenstein, like these are reevaluation dates, Kenrich. These are reevaluation dates, not guaranteed return dates. And especially for something like a hamstring injury, which is really tricky. Like you see it every year across all sports, how you can think one thing about a hamstring, you're ramping up to play, and then as Jay Will did, you kind of aggravate it or re-irritate it, as it was officially put. And so he's going to miss some time, and the Thunder are going to have to lean on this lack of front court depth until, Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, whenever it's going to be, but a significant amount of time. And so I just think that, so after this time that goes by, for the interim, you're going to have to lean on Chet and Oos. And I just think that, the Thunder are prepared for this outcome. The Thunder had to handle injuries last year. I mean, for as healthy as they were, there were stretches where Jay Will was out. Of course, Kenrich did not start the year healthy. I don't think he ended the year healthy either, personally, but that's just speculation. So I just think that when you look at this team, there's no reason to worry. But, of course, you need to monitor these reevaluation dates, and we'll keep you informed here on Locked On Thunder. Along with that, on Thursday, I should say, the Thunder waived Alex Reese and slid Leons into his spot. Leons, of course, played in Summer League with the Thunder, was in training camp and preseason with the Thunder. Now he's on a standard NBA contract after being called up by the Blue. I think that this is just an insurance policy. Now this is speculation, but while Reese is a great story, he seems like a great guy. He got his first NBA bucket, and what a road it was, 4 years at Alabama. And then you become a bartender. You start working at a moving company. You go kill it in the G League, and then you get to the NBA, sign a contract, and score your first NBA bucket. Like, that's a heck of a career. That's a heck of a story nonetheless. But the reason why I think you swap him out for Leons, as the Thunder have done, is that Leons is just a world better defender. Like he is worlds better than Alex Reese defensively, especially for what the Thunder need, this break glass in case of emergency player to be. So, like, I don't think that you're going to rely on either player in your rotation, but when you're playing these 3 games in 4 nights and you're playing back-to-backs and that's a lot to put on just 2 guys in the front court like Chet, like Oos. So you might need to dip into a third option at small ball 5, and Leons is just worlds better than Reese as a small ball 5. Last year at Bradley, he held opponents, to a great percentage at the rim. He was in the 83rd percentile at rim defense for being 6'9". and having some of that build to him. So I just think that he fits what the Thunder would need to call on more than Alex Reese. But I don't think that either one will play a ton of minutes. I just think that should you need to get to those minutes, Leon's fits much better. A two-time All-Conference defender, a Defensive Player of the Year in the Mountain Valley Conference, and two-time All-Conference player. I think that offensively, he fits the mold of the Thunder with his ability to cut and his feel off the ball, and as kind of a connective passer at times. That mixed with his defense, you can't go wrong here. With that being said, technically the Thunder don't have an open roster spot right now. And I think that you can point to, well, AJ Mitchell's just doing so good. Why wouldn't you convert him right now? And when's he going to get converted? I would not expect an AJ Mitchell contract conversion until after the trade deadline. You have 50 games under the new two-way deal rules. You have 50 games that he can play in before you have to make a decision. You want to carry that flexibility for as long as possible. And it's not to grade AJ. Like, I think that AJ is going to get converted. It has nothing to do with AJ or how he plays or getting a larger sample size on him playing. I think it has everything to do with what that represents of, technically the spot is filled right now. We just saw how easy it is to dump these kind of contracts. They just dumped Alex Reese on a Thursday morning for the benefit of signing Leon's. They're going to dump Leon's once this team gets healthy, I fully believe, and you'll be back down to having an open roster spot to take with you into the trade deadline in case you want to pull off some 2-for-1 or multi-players for one swap, and you have that open roster spot to execute that trade and then waive some players and then convert AJ Mitchell. So I just think that you want to give yourself that flexibility to keep going. I look back at Aaron Wiggins' contract conversion, and it was the same situation. Wiggins was playing excellent, and people were waiting around wondering, why aren't they converting this guy's contract? And they went out and they made multiple trade deadline deals. They brought over Umani, or the guys they brought over that player, and they waived them immediately to make a trade go through, and then they converted Wiggins. So I just think that that's kind of the path line that this team is setting up for AJ Mitchell's conversion, which I wouldn't expect to happen anytime soon, but to no fault of AJ. He's been spectacular. I wrote about him for Thunder on SI that you can go check out from Thursday morning. But that's the housekeeping tidbits. Now we're going to get into your mailbag questions and your hot takes for me to grade. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel right now. Get ready to tackle the NFL action this weekend at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So go to FanDuel.com right now. The FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything from live betting to spreads, player props, over-unders. Go check it out. Whether it's the middle of the game or you want to get in ahead of time, you can do it at FanDuel. Join today, and new customers, when they place their first $5 bet and win it, you will get $150 in bonus bets. Go check it out today at FanDuel. If you're only really into the NBA, they have plenty out there for you, like tonight's Thunder game against Portland, where the Thunder are 12-point favorites in Portland. Go check it out today at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Every single morning, every single day, we're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. I'm Rylan Stiles. You can check me out at Rylan_Stiles on Twitter. You can check it out on Thunder on SI. And so let's talk about your mailbag questions, where these are all coming from Twitter. The first one was a hot take from Thunder Taker 25. The Thunder will not lose 10-plus games this year. Hey. On a scale of 1 to 5 peppers, I'm going to give that a 5. Because I just think that, can this team be a historic all-time great team? I would refer you to Monday and Monday's show. I'm not trying to wet blanket this team. What I think when it comes down to win-loss record is you've got to have some incentive to not lose 10 games. And what I mean by that is, when I look around the Western Conference, like if this team starts to play at a pace in which you don't think they're going to lose 10 games, and that becomes a real conversation, then the Thunder have completely and totally distanced themselves from the rest of the West. Because I don't think that Denver is going to compete for the number one overall seed as they did a year ago. I just don't think that they're as talented. I don't think that they have the pieces, and I don't think that they care, frankly, enough to compete. You fully expect Luka and Kyrie to miss some games, and they're already struggling right now while those guys are playing, although they're not playing up to their standards. I think Minnesota has the best chance to rival the Thunder for the 1 seed, but they're not playing defense right now. My reasoning for them having the best chance is I think it's inevitable for them to get it in gear defensively and to fin at the rim at the rate that they once were. They have Rudy Gobert. They have, the pieces they need. But if the Thunder are on this pace where they're only going to lose, 9 games or less, or they're going to lose exactly 10, then that last week of the season is meaningless. Because if this team loses 10 or less games, no one's even within striking distance of overtaking them for the 1 seed. And it's all about the playoffs, and the playoffs are all about health. So you wouldn't really have the incentive to push forward and to play your guys that final week. At the Scoop on Hoops, hot take number 1, Chet has been the better player than Shai right now due to Shai's 3-point experiments. I mean, sure, like over this sample size of 4 games, yeah. I think if you're looking at this season so far, Chet's been the best player on the team. So I would have to give that a 1. Now, do I think that will continue? No, I think that Shai will, of course, prove to be the best player on this roster. But currently, through 4 games, I would agree that Chet's playing the best right now out of anybody. Your next hot take is AJ Mitchell saved the Thunder last night with the second unit. He's finished with more minutes than Oos by the end of the season, despite Oos's improvement. I'll give that a 3.5, 3.5, 4, because I think that we just have to see what it looks like for both those guys when Hartenstein returns. For Oos, it's obvious. Like, Oos is playing the small ball 5. When Hartenstein returns and one of or both of Kenrich and Jay will return, however that happens, whatever order that happens in. When those guys return, they play the same position as Oos is being asked to play right now. What does his minutes look like whenever that does unfold? But for AJ, like, AJ's big calling card right now is being that table setter, and I think he can really handle it. Again, we talked about AJ all podcast long on Thursday's show. What I look at with AJ is how much of that table setting and playmaking does Hartenstein replicate, and does Hartenstein produce once he returns as a very skillful passer and a skillful passer out of the high post, to where does he squeeze out some of the AJ Mitchell minutes, because the minutes have to come from somewhere. You don't get to just play longer games when you get Hartenstein back. So if I had to pick right now, I think history tells us that it would be Oos that has his minutes squeezed a bit. So I don't think that this is an incredibly hot take, but I also wouldn't rule out like Oos actually catching on, because by the time you get to that point where you have to rebalance minutes, Oos will have played, 20-something games or more, as your backup 5. And if he keeps playing at this trajectory, then you figure you put him over to that 4 where he's more naturally fit, and he can look even better. The last hot take, health in mind, this Thunder team will win 68+ games. You put the plus on there. I'm going to give that a 5 on the Pepper scale. We talked about this a lot with Undertaker 25's, hot takes. So I won't harp on it too much, but health in mind, they've already suffered a ton of injuries to their front court. They can't really afford anything else if they're trying to win 68 games. And I just don't know that they're going to get there, especially in the West, because while everything's riding high right now, you're 4-0. The losses will come. They're not going to go 82-0, and this team is going to face tougher stretches than this. This is a tough stretch in the sense of workload, because you had a 3 and 4 nights in the preseason. You had a 3 and 4 nights in week 1. Now in week 2, you have another 3 and 4 night stretch. Like, that's been tough workload wise, but opponent wise, it's not been very tough. So let's just keep that in mind as we are bearing out the win total for this team. But it will be incredibly hard to beat this team because they can just go on these avalanche-like runs like those old Warriors team could do from three. We talked about that on Monday. Heath says, I think SGA should chill out on the amount of threes a little and focus back to getting in the mid-range. I disagree. I think that what would get him better stats, what would get him more approval rating for the MVP award, for sure going to the mid-range, for sure getting to the rim. What helps you try to win a title? Shooting more threes. You've got to shoot more threes. The Thunder were the very best three-point shooting team percentage-wise a year ago. They were in the bottom half of the league, and they were in the 20s of three-point attempts per game. I think they were 24th last year in three-point attempts per game. So you've just got to shoot more threes if you want to win at a championship clip. And it starts at the head of the snake, and I think that it's good for SGA long-term. Is it good for him short-term? No, but it's good for him long-term. At About to Dunk, Lou is off to a hot start. Do you think this could be related to his lightening the load on the defensive end of the court? It's a good point. I think it's possible. I think that there's no doubt whenever you're the sole matchup for the best player on the other team, you're going to get tired. You're going to get worn down. You might not have your legs with you. And so they're preserving his legs with the style that they're playing defensively now, where it's not all on Lou Dort to be a certified stopper. We'll never know if that's the exact reason why, or if he's just having a brutally hot stretch, like a white hot stretch to start the year. It's only a 4-game sample size. But if this 4-game sample size turns into something more, and it turns into we're 20 games in and it's happening, we're 40 games in and it's happening, we're a whole season in and it's happened, then I think that that's really the only thing that's changed. Because you look at it a year ago he was already taking quality looks. Like, he really, really helped himself rein in bad shots last year, and that's why you saw his efficiency spike a year ago. So that's one explanation for his efficiency spike, was he cut out those bad shots. An explanation for his efficiency spike this year could very well be that point from About to Dunk of, you're lightening the load on defense, and you're going to have more legs on offense. And you need your legs to shoot. So I could totally see that being valid and being what's been the cause of this. We'll get into more questions and comments coming up. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Game Time, check out Game Time right now. I think that Game Time is perfect for the NBA season. Because in the NBA, you follow this sport, that you might have a favorite player around the league coming to town. For example, Paolo Banchero was hurt right now. And, you might not know if your favorite player that's coming to town is in, is out. And sometimes these lineup data points do not show themselves until right before tip-off. The coaches do not reveal who's in and out until right before tip-off. And that's why at Game Time, you can wait it out. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Wait it out. Make sure all your guys are playing. And then go ahead and go to the arena and buy your ticket at Game Time, where you get last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I love to toggle the all-in prices feature and know exactly what you're going to pay right up front, and the view from your seat in case you're going to a different arena that you've never been to before. You want to make sure you're getting a good sight line. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app, create your account. What time is it? Game time. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. Go check out Locked On NBA today to hear about the national perspective of basketball. And you have 2 different shows in one feed. Game nights, recapping the entire slate of NBA action, and our midday show talking about the biggest NBA topics. This next one comes from @Kent Nicholson. I don't think the Thunder are playing well, clicking some on defense, but not fully, and on offense, very little, if at all. Am I wrong? You're not wrong. This Thunder team has not played their A game yet, and they've not played to their best of their ability. You saw the most sustained flashes of the best that they can play, of them clicking on all cylinders on Wednesday against San Antonio. But even Wednesday, you saw some lulls. You saw some sputtering points. And that's to be expected early in the season. What I think is going to be interesting to watch for this weekend is going to be role players typically shoot better at home. And through 4 games, you've played 2 road games, you've played 2 home games. The Thunder shot brutally on the road. And at home, they shot better against San Antonio. They shot 40% against Atlanta. Like, what does that look like in Portland? And then more importantly, what does that look like on Saturday with the Clippers? I've been talking to Andrew Schleck, Brennan Obar, Joe Mazzato, the guys that you know and love, and they just laugh at me for being mildly concerned about the Clippers game. On top of it being a back-to-back, this is a building these guys have never shot in before. The sight lines are so different than what you're used to. It's thrown off guys like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant at the free throw line. Like, for a team that's not already, shooting poorly, that's not just shooting poorly currently, but now you go into a gym you've never shot at before on a back-to-back where you have a limited, if at all, shoot around before. I just don't know what they're going to look like shooting the ball this weekend. So I to answer your question, I don't think that you're crazy. We're wrong. This Thunder team has not played their A game yet. At Obey_the dope. So I thought Dylan Jones would be playing the AJ Mitchell role, but he has not played at all now. But I'm seeing how good AJ is. What do you think the plan is for DJ? Dylan Jones is going to take time. Dylan Jones is a multi-year college guy, but transitioning from being a guard and being the initiator and being the full focus of Woodbridge State to being a 4, mighty big transition. He's going to spend a ton of time with Cam Woods and then Blow for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's got to become an NBA defender. Like, he cannot defend right now at an NBA level, and there's no better mentor than Cameron Woods to get you ready for the defensive side of the basketball. There's just no other person you'd rather have preparing guys defensively. So that's number one. Number two, he's got to learn the Thunder system offensively. This is just so new to him. He played off ball his first year at Weber State. He played some his second year, but then he was the man. And not only you're not the man, you're playing the 4. I think that the Thunder envision him as a 4. So he just got to learn so much that, I thought that there's going to be a role for him to play with the front court injuries if Oos was not up to par. Oos has been spectacular, and now you get to really hone in on him in the G League during training camp, and they'll start playing here at the middle of November and kind of go from there. Andrew Baxter says the Thunder are going to win the first 10 games of the year at minimum. I'm going to give that a 4.5 out of 5 peppers. That's what I'm going to give that at. Because, one, I'm mildly concerned about the Clippers game. But you've got Portland, the Clippers, that takes you to 5-6. The Magic takes you to 7. The Nuggets in Denver takes you to 8. The Rockets on Friday takes you to 9. And then the Warriors at home, front end of a back-to-back, takes you to 10. I think that I'd give it a 4 just because you're bound to lose some games and you have a schedule loss in there. You have a team in the Nuggets that will be wanting to get that win, I feel like. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being too reserved with the predictions. Andrew Baxter also asks, what are your thoughts on Draymond Green and what he said about the post-game interviews? So basically, Draymond Green, to sum it up and paraphrase it, the Thunder are too jovial. Champions don't have the barking and post-game group interviews after games. I don't think it matters. That stuff happens after the game. It's not thought about during tip-off. It's not thought about before the game. It's just an after effect of the game. And I don't think it has any bearing on why they lost to the Mavericks last year. I don't think it has any bearing on what they'll do this year. These guys in the NBA are jersey swapping, taking photos, fraternizing with the other players. Draymond Green himself raves about his opponents, mainly LeBron James, who he clings on to like his brother. I don't think that it matters. I think it's just a cool thing that they do. I think it's Draymond Green as a podcast, and he feels the pressure that everybody with a microphone feels, that you've got to have a take. You've got to get it out there. You got to get it clipped and aggregated and have Clemente Almanza post it for you. Like, you got to get it all out there and kind of get in the headlines. It's not how I try to do things. It's not what everyone does, but that's what most people do. And I think that that's what Draymond did. I mean, he wants to become relevant. He wants to stir things up. You can tell by the reports that came out last year that the Warriors didn't take too kindly to the SGA Instagram post about Curry. Maybe that plays into it. But ultimately, I just don't think that it was anything other than, man, Draymond, what are we going to talk about today? Oh, I've got it. I'll just talk about the post-game interviews. So I think that that's what it was. Marvin Jones says, Chicago very happy with Josh Giddey. Only players in the league that can match his points, rebounds, assists is Jokic and Doncic, and he's doing it in 28 minutes. Yeah, I mean, we said that the entire summer. He's going to be really good in Chicago. Alex Caruso is a much better fit and much better for OKC than Josh would have been in this role. And everybody's happy. You'll win and you'll win and you'll win all the way around. So thank you so much for listening to today's show. We'll be back on Friday night to recap the Portland game, back on Saturday night to recap the Clippers game, and then we'll have another full week of Locked On Thunder for you. Until then, be good and be good to one another.